meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, I gotta redo that. Being involved in this platform, you are authorizing permission for this to be videotaped and uploaded to our website. Additionally, no reproduction or use of this video may be made without prior written consent. Please be aware to keep your devices on mute. The mute button is on the bottom left corner. And any questions that you have, please put them in the chat. We will be answering as we go along through the presentation. And then afterwards, we will be posting this video to our website and sending a post-viewing survey along with certificates for attendees. And I believe that our presenter also has a special surprise, but I will let them speak on that later on. So with that, I will hand it over to our director, Cindy Lanehoff, to do our introductions. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I hope it is a tolerable Wednesday, at least, and hopefully a great Wednesday where you are today. Thank you for joining us. I'm so glad to be able to reintroduce to you Caroline Jens, who has been with us before on a webinar. She is the founder of Childcare Biz Help, and Childcare Biz Help handles the operational responsibilities of an organization or a center. She has over 10 years in childcare administration, so she has walked a mile in everybody's shoes that's on this call. And more importantly, over 25 years in finance, because we all know that, you know, juggling the financial responsibilities of a childcare center is definitely one that we are seeing more and more needs some consistent discussion about how to do it and do it well. Childcare Biz is also an NCCA business affiliate, and they offer periodic special pricing to members of NCCA for some of their services. And if you want to find out more about Caroline and Childcare Biz, you can go to our website, nationalchildcare.org, or you can go to Caroline's, and I'll let her tell you about her website. And with her today is one of her partners, Robert Kirschner, and he brings to us an extensive level of business leadership experience in strategic planning, franchise and brand distribution development, operations, marketing, and much more as it pertains to business development. And, you know, I want to really stress, we are working hard to help our legislators realize we are a business and that we need to be recognized as a business. And so that's why we're putting a lot of emphasis on this. And both Bob and Caroline are part of an organization called Early Childhood Education Intelligence, which they'll tell us more about today. Bob is also very passionate about early childhood ed, and he's worked with hundreds of childcare centers to help owners improve their financial performance, as well as their own personal ownership satisfaction. So I can't imagine that you wouldn't want to hear what they both have to say. So I'm going to be quiet and turn it over to Caroline and Bob. Thank you, Caroline and Bob, for joining us today.
Our pleasure.
I muted myself and then I forgot to unmute myself. Uh-oh, if that's an idea of what today is going to be like, we'll see what happens. But no, thank you, Cindy and Storm and Mariah and NCCA and NECBA for allowing us the opportunity to come here today and train on this much needed topic. We know that we probably could talk on this all day, and we have, you know, less than an hour to give you as much information as we can based on experiences that Bob and I have had, you know, working with schools all over, you know, nationwide, and just some ways that they have, some solutions they have in place, you know, for their hiring and retention success. So we're thankful to be here. I'm going to get started and I'll introduce us just a little bit more here as we move on. Oh, and stay with us until the end because we have a really great giveaway. It's called 1001 Recruitment and Enrollment Strategies. And it's a whole book of just lots of different ways that you can attract new staff and attract families. So that will be given to you at the end of today. started here. Okay, so it's no secret, that since 2020, our nation's child care centers at all levels have been strained. COVID-19 has affected companies as employees have chosen to, leave the career that they've been on, this career path they've been going. And COVID has kind of readjusted people's priorities. And so we're seeing some major hiring and retention strains in our industry very specifically. And as the market continues to shift, this unknown that we're continuing to experience, it's going to require much from us in order to remain competitive in this job space. And I'm assuming that's why you're all here. We anticipate that the hiring and retention challenge for our schools is going to continue. And we're really going to need, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, not really diving into too many numbers, but just really understanding, how financials impact your hiring and retention strategies, and how to find those dollars that you can allocate to some of the methods that I'm going to share with you today. So we're going to have 3 talking points. We're going to quickly touch over today's reality, and then we're going to discuss methods to overcome those challenges of today's reality. And then again, we're going to find ways to pay for all those new fun strategies that we talk about. So ultimately, we want you to walk away from today with really clear practices that you can immediately start in your school to help with your hiring challenges. Not much about us. Again, Cindy did a great job announcing who we are. I just want to brag on Bob for a minute. Bob and I have been working together now for over a year, and he helps a lot of my clients buy and sell schools. So if you're in need of any of that, this is a guy that you can trust, amazing partner, and I'm very grateful to be here today with Bob. Did you need to say anything, Bob, before I get started?
No, I'm fine. I appreciate the introduction and look forward to today's webinar. I appreciate everyone attending today.
Great, and I hope you all can hear me good. So let's start this by painting a picture of today's reality, because I really believe that if we have a clear understanding of where we are today, we can create this path of our ultimate goal, which is to be fully staffed with star performers. We're seeing ourselves compromise in quality of the people that we hire. And so not only do we want to have a full staff, but we want that staff of really star performers, right? So the first thing we're seeing is this shrinking workforce and a limited number of new educators coming into our industry again, coming into our classrooms. A lot of this started with COVID, not that it wasn't happening prior, but we really lost about 10% of our workforce during the pandemic. And we're seeing many more of them, leave as the pandemic keeps going and as priorities have changed. And I think if we were to go over some of those reasons, some educators have just lost their passion for teaching. We're seeing that in some of our schools, whether that's burnout or just wanting to go on a new career path. We are seeing educators that are losing that passion. Kids have become a little harder to care for. We're seeing a lot more behavioral issues. So that's really weighing down on some of our teachers' passions. The other thing we're seeing is just that tired of dealing with COVID, tired of dealing with, face masks and closing of classrooms and frustrated parents. So that can really weigh on you as a teacher. The other thing that we're seeing is this change in priorities. I like to call it that post-COVID employee. So we're seeing that fewer adults they're looking for meaning, more meaning in their work. And yes, childcare is a love of passion, where it's caring for young minds, but we're seeing people's minds shift to wanting more independence, wanting more flexibility, wanting to spend more at home. And so we're seeing that change in priorities. This is often leading workers. They're wanting more flexibility. They don't want to work full time. And I read this morning and I thought this was interesting. that an independent contractor, as an independent contractor, you can work for a company like Lyft, a company like rover.com, which is like a mobile, it's a mobile pet sitting service. And I know that sounds kind of strange, but you can do Lyft, you can be this mobile pet sitter, and you can create flexibility in your work schedule. You can control what you do, and you can control how much money you make. And this is what this post-COVID employee wants. And then there's that final piece, which is wage, right? So people are leaving just because they want to make more money. And I just heard last month, we did this webinar a month ago, and Hobby Lobby was advertising that they're hiring at $19 an hour. So that's a really non-stressful job, not to take anything away from Hobby Lobby because I love it, but you know, to work in a childcare center and not be able to even make that $19 an hour and have the pressure and the stresses that we do, you know, we're seeing people leave our industry. And even just going to that childcare center down the street, if you start as a new employee, you're often being started at a higher wage than the one that you're currently making at your existing school. So you see this dilemma in today's reality. And the final piece that I really believe is burnout. You know, we're seeing a lot of educators burning out in the classroom. We are seeing a lot of administrators burning out, a lot of owners, because they're having to go into the classroom almost full time now. You know, administrators are having to juggle, and if many of you are owners or directors in your schools listening to this, I'm assuming you're in the classroom a lot more today than you've ever been. And you're still having to handle all your administrative responsibilities on top of that. So that's a lot to ask. So we're seeing a lot of burnout in our industry. Now, I know this is a lot of doom and gloom, and I always like to paint this picture, but that's why you're here today, because you're feeling that overwhelming feeling of today's reality. But we do have a lot of optimism for our industry, and I hope you do too. Even with the challenge of securing staff, we still have a lot of optimism. Our sector, our childcare industry as a whole, is growing stronger than ever. Many companies have experienced a minimum of 8% growth since 2020. And we're also seeing, I know firsthand, I help brand new startups start schools, and I get a minimum of 3 calls a week of people wanting to start schools. And these are entrepreneurs, people that have never been in our industry. So they're viewing early childhood education as a definite strong industry that they feel not only can they make money in, but they can also impact a community. So our future is bright in childcare. We just need to get through these challenges of today. And we're all so resilient in our industry that, you know, we'll get through it. And it's really great to have resources like NCCA, like NECPA, like Cindy. She's a very strong advocate out there. So it's great to have these partners to help us through this. So enough with reality. How do we overcome that? And I've broken it down into 4 different methods that we can kind of tap into. And I'm hoping 1 or more of these methods are things that you can actually take back into your school. So I always like to start with your company image and first impressions. You know, this is that customer experience that you're putting out there. And when I say customer, I not only mean families, but I also mean employees. You know, what is that image that you're putting out there for that prospective employee? What is the first impression that they're doing? Because if we're not managing those first impressions, if we're not managing our image, that's going to prevent people from even looking at us in terms of employment, right? So let's step back with a fresh eye in our organizations, and let's look constructively at a few areas. So your job ad, you know, that's number 1. How are you standing out from the competition in terms of the ads that you're placing? You know, many ads just list all the job duties instead of really tapping into what is the experience that employee is going to have in your organization. We all know what the job requirements are of a lead teacher, of a teacher. We don't have to explain that in our ads. So if you truly want to stand out, We need to make our job ads more exciting, less boring, and less skill specific, less job duty specific. Your website, is your website outdated? When's the last time that you updated any content on your website? Do you have a career page? You know, we're still seeing a lot of schools that do not have a career page. And the ones that do really haven't put any life onto it. So you should be able to go to your career page on your website and see your culture in action. So whether that's through video, through images, through the content that you're writing, that career page should be that landing page that you're able to draw prospective employees to, and they will want a desire to come work for you. So that's what that career page should be doing for you. That's what your website should be doing for you. That's that first impression, those images of your brand. That's how important that website is. Same with your social media. We can't forget how important social media is from a hiring aspect. It's not just about enrollment. Your prospective employees are going to go stalk you on social media. And unfortunately, Facebook is kind of going away for that employee that you want to hire. They're not on Facebook. So we're having to get knowledgeable of things like Instagram and TikTok. So if you're not familiar with TikTok, if you're on it just watching videos, you need to start using it for hiring. And how do you do that? You have your team create little short fun videos of your culture, and you continue to post those things. So TikTok is a really cool thing to be using. That's where your demographic in terms of who you want to hire is coming from. So we need to become familiar with various aspects of social media. And just remember, what impression are we putting out there about our brand? And then finally, with first impressions, we can't forget the exterior of your building and the interior of your building. People are going to drive past your facility and they're going to get a first impression. If I see a job ad from your company that I love, and I come and I drive past your school and I look and it looks outdated, it looks like there's been no love, I'm probably going to drive right by. So we need to think about, you know, do we need to repaint? Do we need to do some updates? Is there something fun we can do in our entryway? What can we do to make sure that we're giving those really great first impressions? And the second method, the second method for overcoming some of these hiring challenges is the obvious, right? The wages, the benefits, the incentives that we offer. So as I mentioned, you know, many employees are leaving some of them are going to the school down the street to make more money. Some are leaving our industry as a whole because we make more money elsewhere. And we're having to look at those wages very seriously. As a matter of fact, with a number of the schools that I'm working with, we're increasing wages 10 to 20%. That is a huge number. So how do you figure out how to offset those giant increases in wages? And that's one thing that Bob is going to touch on when he comes on. Bob helped create this tool that helps analyze if I raise my tuition or if I raise my wages by this percent, how much do I have to raise tuition? So this is a real conversation that's going on, I'm assuming in your school too, because it's with all of our customers in terms of deciding how much do I increase my wages and then how do I pay for it? But there's also the benefit and incentive side, right? It's not just about that hourly rate. We're having to get a little more savvy in the benefits and incentives that we offer. It's not just about free childcare or discounted childcare anymore. The trend that we're seeing is creating incentive plans that are actually all the way down to the classroom level and the cook or the chef. So creating incentives that are throughout the entire school, not just at the director level. So what we're seeing is leaders are trying to find metrics to quantify on how to allow our teachers and cooks to get small cash incentives to be a really cool bonus for them for, you know, the work that they do. And I'm going to share some of the things that we've done. So we have schools that are doing perfect attendance bonuses, which kills me to think of that we have to give bonuses for perfect attendance, but we're having to do it. It's just a fact of what's going on nowadays. As a matter of fact, we have a school that's doing random cash days. So if you're here on a Friday, they're going to pick a random Friday. If you're here, they're going to give you $50. If you're here on a Monday, they're going to give you $25. And they're just going to do this random, you know, cash give outs. And it's just another way to give incentive, to encourage people to come to work, to be on time. Another idea is paid time off. So we created little punch cards with 8 punches. And as teachers do certain things, they get a punch. Once that card is filled, it qualifies them for 8 hours of paid time off. So it's a pretty cool thing. So the teachers carry around their punch cards. So if they get a positive review from a parent or a coworker, when their classroom is fully enrolled, when their room is exceptionally clean, when their lesson plans are executed, because, you know, as much as I do, it's one thing to have a written lesson plan, but it's another to actually execute it, right? If they have perfect attendance, or if they're communicating with the parents, or if they go above and beyond, they get a punch on that card. So just think of creative ways that you can make the workplace where people feel a little more appreciated versus just that wage. Another really key benefit, like I mentioned, that post-COVID employee, they're wanting flexibility, right? So I know flexibility is hard when we have classrooms, but it's being done. People are not wanting to work full time. They're wanting very short bursts of schedules. So my challenge to you would be to revisit your scheduling and the mentality behind it. And we can't just hire full-time employees. We're going to need to figure out how to piece together and collaboratively put together part-time schedules. And then if you're doing any types of these benefits or incentives, and you're doing things that are different than your competitor, again, remember the first thing that I talked about, those first impressions. If you're doing cool things like this, post it on social, post it on your website, put it on your career page, put it in your job ad, and let people see what you're doing. Our third method, I'm a firm believer of always learning, continuous improvement. And for retention, it's so critical that we're always improving, always innovating, always keeping the workplace exciting, right? So what can you do to make your school with the mindset of always wanting to innovate? You know, it could be new software. It could be writing your own curriculum. It could be offering a career path program, a director and training program, different types of professional development. What about different enrichment programs, things that you've never considered for the children? Parent workshops. What about creating not just a break room, but a stress relief station where teachers can go in and decompress? And then what's really cool, one thing that I read this morning was in creating this culture of continuous improvement, what about extending that into the home and encouraging your families to also do the same thing? So we were talking about offering training resources to our families, whether we're putting on evening webinars or developing a video library or even PDF resources. So if we're in our schools saying we want our employees to continuously improve, our environment to continuously improve, to cascade that culture down to our families, what can we do to get them to continuously improve? What resources can we provide? So that's just kind of a really fun thing that you can have your staff be included in. And when we include them in things like that, it will help with retention too. Now, the final item that I'm going to talk about before I turn it over to Bob is the most important one, and that's leadership development. And I know it sounds silly, but we often spend most of our training energy and dollars on our teaching staff. We often forget about our leaders. And we often think they're just going to be out there independently, you know, doing what they need to do in order to maintain, you know, their leadership status. However, this post-COVID environment is requiring a lot of different things from our leaders. Okay, and so we need to take that time to help educate them so that they can be the leader they need to be today in today's workforce. I read today about 3 skills that you need in order to lead in today's workplace, and I'm going to share these with you because I think they're very valid. You're going to need the ability to support the development of ideas and creativity. People want to be creative. So as a leader, we need to be able to support that creativity, to get it out of our staff, to encourage it. The next is the ability to enable human skills and empathy. We have to be able to empathize with what's going on in our post-COVID environment with our staff in order to retain them. And many of our leaders don't have that empathetic side. They don't know how to relate. And then finally, the ability to develop mental flexibility and agility. So I do believe that these skills are important just to lead this post-COVID employee that I was talking about. It's not a specific age, it's not a specific generation, but it is definitely a group of our society today that was really impacted by COVID, and they still are very impacted. And it's a real thing. No, and what we're seeing is the anxiety levels and the stress levels of our employees are so significant right now, but our leaders don't know how to deal with it. So when you think of professional development from this day forward, we need to think about our leaders and how can we equip them to lead the type of staff that they have today. And then finally, just be an advocate for their personal journey too. So, you know, there's boundaries that we need to create with our staff, but we need to build that personal connection with them, right? And part of the personal connection is tapping into their personal journey too, and supporting them, being a cheerleader, and celebrating wins with them. So again, that was 4 really quick ideas on hiring and retention. I know I went through them fast, but really it's that first impression. It's the wages, the benefits, the incentives, the things that are you doing for your team. And then those continuous improvement. How are you always innovating? What is the energy that you're creating in your schools? And then finally, professional development, not just for your teaching staff, but developing your leaders on how to handle this post-COVID environment. So now Bob we're going to do a poll, and then I'm going to turn it over to Bob, and he's going to tell us, how do we get that money to help pay for these wages, to help pay for this professional development? How do we do this? So I'm going to turn it over to Mariah, if she could help us put these polls out here. If Mariah's there.
Sorry, I am here. I was just figuring it out. I didn't know if you were going to speak on it first, but I did go ahead and launch the question. Okay. Okay, look like we've got about 40%. Okay, a few more people are answering.
And then you'll be able to share those results, right, Mariah?
Absolutely, yes, I will share that. Okay, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and end this poll, and then we're gonna share our results here.
It's interesting, some of the people said they couldn't see the poll.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that if, unfortunately, if you don't have an updated version of Zoom, you may not be able to see the poll option. I'm not sure. I didn't know if we wanted to. All right. All right, maybe we should ask the question for those who can't see the poll.
Sure.
Okay. So,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say, so the first question they posed was, when was the last time you raised your tuition? So I can put this question in the chat, and whoever cannot see.
Perfect.
Okay, so that's going through. Okay, looks like we've got 2020, 2022, oh, 5 years, one said, 2019. Okay, thank you, everyone. Stop sharing this one. All right, we're gonna move on to the next question.
Perfect.
All right, so this one I'm gonna put in the chat as well. It is, what is your average lead teacher hourly wage? Okay, we've got 16, got 18, 12, 25. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end this poll, show what results we have from the actual poll. Okay, so it looks like a lot of people are around the 16, 18 area and 13 to 15.
Right.
All right, stop sharing. Move on to the next question. So this one is, have you increased your wages in the last 3 months?
Hey, Mariah, I think that's good enough. We'll do this last one.
Sure.
And then Bob can get started.
Okay. Okay, just gonna go ahead and end this right here. So most people have said yes.
Perfect.
So awesome. I'll give it back to you and Carolyn, you and Bob.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Okay, we'll go ahead and end the polling, and then we'll get started with the next part of our presentation. So again, I appreciate everyone attending today, and it's a pleasure being here this afternoon. And this is an interesting topic, and what I want to say first off is I'm going to present a lot of information to you, including some financial information. And just know, as it was said earlier, that this is being recorded, and you can receive a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. But I do want to cover this information because there's several areas for us to talk about, which I think are important, that can positively impact your business. So the first question is, how much money is needed, and what do you need it for? How would you utilize it? Well, first with hiring and onboarding, with the whole process, from the recruitment, marketing, through training, it all costs money. For you to be able to offer above market wages. And again, not just competing with other childcare centers who we traditionally compete with, but with other retailers like Hobby Lobby that Caroline mentioned. Other different types of employers who are all trying to recruit heavily, and they're all having to increase their wages and offer other types of things like the incentive compensation. As Caroline said, historically, we got paid incentive compensation for performance, for we reach our objectives, reach our goals. But now we're being paid incentive compensation for attendance, as Caroline said. It may not sit right, but it's the fact of life right now. We have to do that. Also referring employees. There can be an incentive bonus for those that refer employees to the school. Other benefits, not only health benefits, what about 401ks? And other benefits can be very helpful for certain employees. And then most of all, I think all this combines to create a motivated team, which is really, really key. Okay, let's move on. So the question is, how do we get the resources? What do we have to do to generate the dollars so we can spend them in those areas where we know it's going to be beneficial? Well, we can increase revenue, and we're going to talk about all these. We can apply for and receive grants and subsidies. We can reduce or reallocate expenses. Okay, and we're going to talk more about this. And then it's really key we understand and we use our financial information from our income statements, the revenue categories and expense categories in our decision making. And not only to understand your past decisions, the impact your past decisions have made on your school, but to think in the future. Think about the what ifs, the projections, to make better decisions moving forward to more positively impact your revenue and ultimately your bottom line, your net earnings. That's really what's important, is the bottom line after all your expenses are taken away. So, the question is under these is benchmarking and trends analysis, which are part of the analysis. The question is, how should you or could you improve your school? And how do you know what areas to look at? Well, essentially, when you look at benchmarking and trend analysis, it's essentially to quickly look at that, because you can look at percentages and you look at dollars. And some schools look at one, some schools look at others, some schools look at all those. We're going to talk about that. It's also very important to know how you're doing. How are you doing compared to other like schools? Just not other schools in general, but other schools like you in size, scope, license capacity, geographical areas, and goes on and on. So we're going to talk more about all those, but it's important to know that these are resources. And let's look at examples of these. So let's just start with average wage increases. It used to be we would look at increasing the wage by 5%, 3%, 2%, none some years. Right now, let's say we increase the average wage by 20%. Seems like a big number, but in reality, it's $2.70 more per hour, increasing, in our example, from $13.50 an hour to $16.20 an hour, which according to our poll, 34% of you are actually currently paying between 13 and 15%, and 26% are paying between $16 and $18 rather per hour. So if you raise your wage by $2.70 more per hour, if you have 10 teachers, annually, let's make that 27,000 hours annually. That's $72,900 added wages to your payroll. And then with added taxes, the total impact of that 20% raise is $91,125 annually. Let's look at a second example. Okay, second example is offer incentive pay bonuses. Based on what your annual payroll is, let's say we're gonna designate a 15% bonus of the annualized salary of your employees. So again, looking at the total work hours is 27,000 hours. Total wages at the $16.20 an hour wage, that's $437,400 annually. That's a lot of money, but obviously we know it's the leading expense category in our schools. If you take 15% of that, you would be offering an annual bonus, incentive bonus of $65,610. That's the impact of what you need to look at. Let's go to a third example. Benefits, again, more and more important, even though I know that in some schools, we all historically, very few of the employees may have taken advantage of the benefits, but that could change. If you offer health benefits, again, in recruiting and your hiring, recruitment and retention of your staff, health benefits could be important. Let's say health insurance at $35,000. Other benefits at $10,000. That could be a number of different types of benefits for total employee benefits equaling $45,000. Okay. So how much money is this? Well, to increase your wages by 20%, give an incentive compensation bonus of 15%, and offering health benefits, it equals $201,735. Okay, did anyone hit the floor? It's a big number, but you have to think in the scheme of things, we have to find a way to pay for this. And that's what we're going to talk about next, because you can do this through analyzing your school in allocating and reallocating your financial resources and making improvements in your financial performance. So let's look how we can do this. Okay, and again, a lot of this this isn't rocket science, as they say. I know that many of you, if not most of you, have done a number of these things, but let's focus on this. So number one, you can increase enrollment. Okay, you can increase enrollment, and not only increasing enrollment by adding students, and to add students, you want to increase your utilization. That's the percent to your licensing capacity. And essentially, because when you talk about licensing capacity, most schools have an operating capacity, and that's the comfort level that they want to get at, where they feel they can operate the school efficiently and provide the quality level of care and services. But you may need to stretch a little bit and increase your operating capacity more toward the license capacity is one way of increasing student enrollment or student utilization. What also is key that sometimes we don't think about in some of these presentations is the retention of students. It's much harder to recruit a new student than to satisfy and keep an existing student. Let's focus on maintaining the enrollment, and let's focus as a metrics on the tenure of our students from this time they started, through the time they graduate, hopefully, and then become a school-age after-school student. Following that, very important. Retention is very important. Also looking at new programs you can offer. Do you offer an after-school program for school-age children? Do you offer any enrichment programs or parent pay? It goes on and on and on. So increasing tuition is the next one. Again, when you look at increasing tuition, we're going to give examples of these and show the dollars here in a minute. Also, many of you may receive and utilize grants and subsidies. You participate in the federal food program. These are all available to many schools. Take advantage of these. Take advantage of these. Some of us have never wanted to have a high subsidy level, but you know what? It's out there for you, and there's always folks and children and families in your communities that can benefit from those subsidies. And it's a way, again, to help generate income for your school, to stabilize the school in some cases. Also reduce expenses and reallocate spending. Now, sometimes this involves some legwork, and we're going to talk about this because when we talk about reducing expenses, what's the first reaction? I can't reduce any expense. I need all this. Where do I find this money? And once you find it, how do you know where to reallocate it? So we're going to talk about this, okay? So let's go on to the next slide. Let's talk about method one we talked about, increase enrollment. So this is an example. Let's say your license capacity is 200 students. Your enrollment currently is 140. That's 70% utilization. Let's say if you add 20 students, where your utilization goes up by 14%, now you're at 160 students. So based on that, with an average annual tuition, in our example, per student of $12,000 per year, then these 20 students just generated $240,000 a year. You've just far exceeded the $201,735 you needed to offer those increase in wages and benefits and bonuses to your staff, to all staff. Okay, let's look at the next method. Okay, method two is increase tuition. Okay, let's say again, we're using $250 a week, $12,000 per year. That's based on 48 weeks. Let's say if you increase your tuition by 10%. Again, a lot of people look at increasing tuition by X number of dollars per week, by month, our percentage. In our example, we're going to increase tuition by 10%. There are schools out there increasing tuition by much more than this. So if we look at this, a 10% increase equals $1,200 per student per year. With 140 students, that'll generate an additional $168,000. Again, if you increase your utilization, you're up to 160 students, then you're increasing your tuition by $192,000 a year. You're getting close again to that $201,735. One thing Caroline mentioned is essentially because again, we talk about financial analysis, and we of course have EC Intelligence, which is the financial intelligence platform. But we did recently help a client by creating a spreadsheet, creating a customized support form that helped her make a really key decision in her school. And the decision was how much did she need to raise her tuition to offset her wage increases, to offset a new health plan for employees, and also offset her new 401k. And we're able to do it and show her exactly where the dollars could come from, and for her to easily justify the increases to reinvest that money into her staff, which benefits everyone. Okay, let's look at the third method. The The third method is utilizing grants and subsidy payments. So we know that the amounts and distributions vary by state. And I'm going to use Georgia as an example. I live in Atlanta, on the north side of Atlanta. Georgia, with the Stable 4 award, offers a monthly grant, which is paid out in 23 monthly payments. It's based on a formula, and 100% of the grant can be used for workforce, which includes wages, sign-on bonuses, incentives, bonuses, and others. Some of the schools in Georgia are receiving upwards of $40,000 per month. That alone is over $480,000 a year, which is more than double the money needed to increase the salaries, the wages, the benefits, incentive bonuses for your staff. So lots of different ways to look at this. The key is that when you're using these bonuses and subsidy payments, you really need to track it closely every month, know where it's being spent, know where you can allocate it, but use a financial intelligence platform or some other method that you can utilize to track those funds. It's a lot of money, and it's there for you to use effectively, but it's up to you to effectively use it. Okay, let's move into the next topic, or the next method rather. Okay, method 4 is reduce expenses and reallocate spending. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is where it gets down with the kind of the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts, putting the pencil to the financials and really determining how to look at your financial spending. And in the next slide, we'll talk more about overspending. So look at payroll. An area of payroll we focus on is overtime hours. And that's related to how you schedule. Again, overtime hours really absorb a lot of payroll and increase that percentage of your total revenue. What about programs? Programs like your classroom, program supplies support the curriculum. Replacement supplies, buying additional supplies. That's one area. Another type of program is your travel, entertainment, seminars, meetings, and there's more. Administrative as a category of expenses. That includes, for example, office supplies as one. And let me go back, and I was talking about programs. What I meant to say is really paper products involved with your food, snacks. We're going to talk more about supplier and vendor management, but that would fall under that category. So again, you've got programs for the classroom, administrative, including office supplies, travel, entertainment. Then you have transportation. Not everyone offers transportation. If you have transportation, again, you really closely manage your repairs and maintenance. You want to manage your fuel costs. You want to have the most efficient routes. Make sure your buses are operating efficiently, so you're getting a higher mile per gallon. Again, it all sounds a little trivial in the scheme of things, but those pennies adds up to nickels, nickels to dimes, dimes to quarters, quarters to dollars, and so forth and so on. It all adds up, and we have to be careful and watch every penny in the school. Next, supplier vendor management. Let's go back one more. So under supplier vendor management, again, insurance, facility, supplier, janitorial. An example in a facility, things to look at: lawn care, snow blowing, where you have snow, pest control, security, phone, internet, even utility rates. Okay. And then account receivables, aging. How often do you look at your account receivables in your aging report? Do you let those get out of hand where you're providing care without receiving payment? Most schools, there's a certain degree of this, but again, you want to track this closely. Okay, let's go to the next method. Okay, which is really the last method we're going to talk about during today's presentation, and that's identifying overspending. Okay, so my first question is, how do you know if you're overspending? You may have been using the same spending scenario and percentages the entire time you've been an owner, been a director, or been a lead teacher in your classroom on supplies as an example. How do you know you're overspending? You need to identify overspending in certain categories of your school, again, where you can control it based on analyzing your school trends. And these trends can be analyzed over different time frames, from monthly, quarterly, annually, trailing 4 quarters, trailing 12 months, it goes on and on, but in simple terms, monthly. Analyze where the school spending's been. Look at the variances. You want to look at variance percentages compared to the same period last year, or even the previous period, the previous month, previous quarter. And you want to look at the dollars and the percentages of revenue and compare those based on the category. It's really key that you have discipline on a monthly basis to identify and review your income statements and look for these opportunities to allocate and reallocate spending and identify you may be overspending different areas. Very important to be disciplined with your financial analysis of this. When you look at analyzing benchmarking and income statements, categories and key metrics. So analyzing benchmarking. Okay, we know historically that there's been benchmarking out there. It may have been where we're looking at last year's benchmarking report, and we're saying that our labor cost on a benchmark report was 48% for 2020, and ours is running at 51%, and we're comparing basically dated history. Okay, because we know how much things have changed over the last couple of years, and they change every year. It's a time of change right now. Your benchmarking data needs to be fresh. It needs to be probably at least input monthly. And it's not just your benchmarking, it's key metrics. It's your enrollment conversion rates. It's information about the students, information about employees, information about even utilization of your square footage. It goes on and on and on. You want to know whether you're in the lower quartile, middle quartile, higher quartile, and you want to be able to compare yourself to other like schools. Again, a lot of these benchmarking surveys, it may not be necessarily like schools. It could be a different state, different region, different square footages, different license capacity, different types of curriculum. You might be comparing a traditional curriculum to a Montessori or Reggio Emilia, or even a faith-based curriculum. All these things have to be accounted for and considered when you analyze your school to identify how you're spending if you want to compare your school to other schools. You want to use financial intelligence in how you review your spending and how you review and analyze your financial statements. And again, I'm only talking about income statements. I'm not talking about balance sheets. I'm talking about our balance statements. I'm talking about income statements, top line revenue through bottom line net earnings, which you also call EBITDA. But in this case, net earnings are the bottom line. That's all we need to know. Which is your bottom line after subtracting your expenses from your revenue. Okay, very important. Now, something else I'm going to share with you, and as we talk about ECE intelligence for a minute, something about our industry that's very interesting is it's, a lot of people say it's fragmented, which, parts of it are very fragmented. But one part that we found that really needs to be, I guess, has to be continuity, it has to be consistency, is the financial reporting, meaning the chart of accounts. As I look at schools to analyze the financial performance for evaluations of the real estate and the business performance, considering the business performance, I look at the chart of accounts, I review the financial statements, and they're all different. They're all different based on the accounting system, based on the bookkeeper, based on the CPA. So I think it's very important that we have a standardized chart of account so we can compare apples to apples within our industry when we talk about benchmarking. So Carol and I, work together closely with a very stout intelligence company, or very stout technology company rather, and created ECE Intelligence, which is a financial intelligence platform designed specifically for the childcare industry. And it's designed to be utilized by single rooftop or single owner operators, all the way through the largest national brands in our industry. We want to make sure that the platform is very easy to use and easy to understand, very quick to set up, doesn't require a lot of time on a monthly basis to update, but we want to make sure that it gives you clarity and it gives you strong insight in your school financial performance. That's important. And as I mentioned a couple slides ago, it's important that you go to the monthly data. You have to have fresh data on this, compare those fresh data by the like periods. It's really important. So we created this platform to provide comprehensive school analysis of revenue and expense categories and key metrics like we talked about. It provides trend analysis. It also provides peer group and school benchmarking by like schools, and it goes on and on and on. So what I'd say is, and we're excited about this, we've had a great response from ECE Intelligence, from the folks that we've shown this to, and they've actually signed up for it. If you're interested in finding more about this, then please contact Caroline or myself. We'd love to talk to you more about this. We'd love to show you a demo and talk about your school and how this could benefit your school. So again, I'm going to stop talking, but I get excited about this. I know the impact the financial performance analysis has on individual schools, and I love sharing it with folks. So thanks for listening. I look forward to the potential of working with you.
Great job, Bob. I know I feel like we just ran a marathon throwing all kinds of ideas out there. But I did put in chat that feel free to email us if you have any questions or you want clarification on any of the things that we're trying in our schools. We would love to help. We also will do demos on our ECE intelligence product. So feel free, there's a link in the presentation, or you can email us and we'll get that set up for you. We'd love to show you how we use it in the schools that are currently using it and how they analyze their numbers to create that funding necessary to compete in today's job market. So really, you know, the reality is we have to stand out, right? We have to stand out not only from the childcare center down the street, but we need to stand out from other industries. And how do we do that, right? We have to overcome with intentional methods. So we gave you 4 different methods for you to, you know, tap into those first impressions, the continuous improvement and professional development, and the wages, incentives, and benefits. And then how do we pay for those tools? And ultimately it's that financial intelligence, right? That financial intelligence win, that clarity in your numbers. Any Q&A, we are willing to open it up for questions. I know we're running out of time. We'll just kind of keep a peek on chat. And then again, if you do have anything that you want to email us, feel free.
So Bob and Caroline, we actually did have one that we wanted to circle back around to. Someone asked in the chat, how do you analyze the cost of free childcare to employees? How much does it reduce your revenue?
And I'll take a quick answer. And then, again, Caroline has more experience as an actual, school operator than I do. But what I do, first of all, is I look at the impact as far as from that free. I look at the impact of a benefit to the employee, if it's an employee child that we're taking care of. And I have to set limitations. I have to set budgets to the amount of revenue, the amount of children that I can afford to have under this type of free tuition. And that's the first thing I do. So I can still meet my responsibility, my fiscal responsibilities, they say, to my school, to my family, and be able to provide the level of care to my other parents. But I want to try to do the best I can, but I do limit that based on the financial impact of that free care, or not necessarily free, but reduced care, to the family.
Right, it's tough to juggle when you're giving discounted childcare to our staff, or to our families. We're seeing the family discounts going away. We're even seeing sibling discounts go away, if that tells you something. Right. So that's becoming quite a trend. In order to compete, though, from a hiring standpoint, we're still seeing those discounts. And you have to budget for it. You have to see how many employees, maybe only open up a certain amount of different childcare discounts. Don't give them to everyone. Maybe you only have, maybe you don't even offer that from the infant level, because we lose money in that age group. So something to consider, where you maybe only provide that in the older ages.
There's planning. There's planning and planning it out and looking at the numbers.
Just responding to someone else's question. Someone in here asked about, what makes ECE Intelligence different from QuickBooks, and that's a great question. ECE Intelligence has an automatic upload with QuickBooks, so it makes the import of data very easy. And what makes it different than QuickBooks is the level of trending that we have. You can set metrics, goals in there, produce reports, have those emailed out to various people on your team, and then all your trend history is right there in ECE Intelligence. And what else is really cool is the benchmarking piece. So when we have these peer groups established, you'll be able to see someone your same size, looking at all the various categories on your income statement, where do you stand in comparison to them? And then you can use that information, like if someone else's facility costs are way down, why are yours so high? So it just gives you that new perspective.
Right.
I would just like to, and I hate to end this, in the words of one of our participants, Ronnie Armstrong from Arizona. I have worked with Ronnie many years ago in Arizona when I was working out there with a group of schools. And I had tools like Bob and Caroline are talking about with the company I worked with. And I will tell you, if you have never used a tool like they are talking about and put your business under a microscope, you are really missing an opportunity to help yourself in these trying times. In the words of Ronnie Armstrong, here's how I'd like to close it with Caroline and Robert. Ronnie says, and she's been in the industry a long, long time, this is one of the most informative, oh, I just lost it. This is one of the most informative webinars. I just lost it off the screen. Storm, do you see it?
Sorry about that. It says, this is one of the most informative webinars I've attended in the last 6 months about the labor shortage, and I have attended a lot of them. So thank you, Ronnie.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I feel like it went so fast. We have so many ideas, but feel free, like I said, email me. I would love to, give further insight.
Well, thank you again for sharing. I hope you hear from some of our participants today. Again, you can't go wrong when you put your business under a microscope and say, what can I do to help myself? And having worked in high income and low income areas throughout my career, the answer isn't always the same. But Bob and Caroline had every suggestion I would have made in this webinar. Oh, there was one more I was going to throw in. Small providers sometimes are very empathetic and they don't collect all their money.
Right.
You can't do it for free. Collect your money. So if you're giving away childcare to people who can't afford to pay it, I know it hurts, but you can't go there. So again, thank you all. I know that you're busy and you need to get back to your centers. So we'll see you next month.
I'd like to make one more comment as we exit. A lot of people were saying they haven't raised their tuition in a long time. And I just want to encourage you that at a minimum once a year, you have to look at your numbers and you have to raise your tuition.
And just so you know, we have right now on the screen an invite from Caroline to a childcare retreat here in sunny Florida. So if you're where it's snowing and you want to meet Caroline and Bob personally, she's got 2 tickets left. And I will tell you, I'm very excited. I'm going. I've met Caroline in person. I have not met Robert or Bob. And I also want to keep learning. And I think they both have something, that I can benefit from as well, as far as being a member and the director of the NCCA. So maybe you'll sign up and I'll meet you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, we only have 2 tickets left for this February retreat. Someone asked about the 1001 book. You can go here, eceintelligence.com/downloads. Thank you. Thank you, Storm.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. We enjoyed it. Thanks for attending.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.